Rectores magnifici, spectabiles, honorabiles, vaše excelence, vážené dámy a pánové, zahajuji slavnostní veřejné zasedání Vědecké rady Českého vysokého učení technického v Praze, kterému předsedá rektor a předseda Vědecké rady, docent doktor Vojtěch Petráček, kandidát věd, na kterém vás všechny srdečně vítám. Na programu dnešního slavnostního zasedání Vědecké rady Českého vysokého učení technického v Praze je zvlášť významný úkol udělení čestného titulu Doktor honoris causa Českého vysokého učení technického v Praze profesoru Stephenovi Markovi Barnettovi, profesorovi University Glasgow a profesoru Wolfgangovi Peterovi Schleichovi, profesorovi University Ulm a předání medailí Českého vysokého učení technického. Nyní tedy přistoupíme k udělení čestného titulu Doktor honoris causa Českého vysokého učení technického v Praze profesoru Barnettovi a profesoru Schleichovi. Nejprve si dovoluji požádat děkana Fakulty jaderné a fyzikálně inženýrské profesora Jekse, aby představil doktoranda profesora Barnetta.
Your Magnificence, Magnifici, Spectabiles, Honorabiles, dear Assembly, dear friends and colleagues. I was given a very difficult task to justify to today's assembly the award of the honorary title Doctor honoris causa to dear friends which behave, at least for today's ceremony, for me as quantum particles. The reason is that they exhibit a lot of common traits which always amplify the positive part, and so in my explanation and justification, I, fortunately or unfortunately, will jump from one to the other. The difficult task is because they are so excellent. These are personalities of top international rank in physics and in many respects also in the social life of the corresponding community. To start with Professor Barnett, he, as an amateur musician, the first interference, similarly like Professor Schleich, will certainly understand and support a quote from a letter from the year 1812, where a recommendation is given. And it says, continue. Do not only practice art, but get at the very heart of it. This it deserves, for only art and science rise the man to Godhead. For our guests, for Steve, for Professor Barnett, science is art. He proved during his illustrious career that he can rise physics to art, and he can either present his deep thoughts and significant contributions to the development of physics in an elegant way. In physics we say he used mathematics, or using plain words which are accessible to the broader public, and then we name that approach deep thoughts. Professor Barnett is an intellectual continuation of his mentors, among others, another interference to be named Stig Stenholm, to which a very deep friendship is also mentioned by Wolfgang and also myself. The other mentors of Steve have been Professor Loudon, really essentially an institution in Britain. He wrote very influential books on the topic where Steve Barnett is the master. That's quantum theory and sometimes a bit more specialized quantum optics. The last one maybe to be mentioned in this respect is an Australian, that's David Beck. And essentially there is one of the tops of the scientific results of our today's candidates. That's the Peck-Barnett phase formalism, which in the early 90s caused, in a very positive way, an explosion in papers. Many physicists followed the path which was taken by Steve and been analyzing, using his mathematical concept of the phase to study elementary or advanced processes in quantum optics, which are either the interaction between light and light through a medium, or between light and the material medium itself, represented by, say, a couple of few atoms. So that's one of the really big accomplishments of, or one of the top results, which Professor Barnett thinks should be mentioned. I naturally checked. There are, you might ask, what is the practical purpose of the intellectual endeavors which Professor Barnett takes? And one of the proofs is in his wallet. I think he still carries a $1 bill, which he received not for a paper, but for a patent, which he received with the British Telecom. So you see, for all those who doubt fundamental science is not useful, at least the physicist gets $1 for his activities. More seriously, I naturally would now quote again Boltzmann, who said there's nothing more practical than a good theory. All the physicists here in the room, including our rector, can confirm that fundamental science is really important. To illustrate the quality of the scientific quality, because I have to justify in front of the scientific board why I took the liberty to suggest to award the honorary title to Professor Barnett, is at the age of 36, he became Fellow of the Royal Society of Edinburgh. You might ask, 36 is very young. I checked. Gauss was at the age of 42, and Paul-André-Marie Dirac at the age of 44. A small bit of salt in the speech. Maxwell was at the age of 24. But that's been different times. And Maxwell really started early. His first paper was at the age of 14. So I think at that time Steve was entertained with music. The other achievements to be mentioned in life of Professor Barnett are naturally the promotion from the Fellow of Royal Society of Edinburgh to the Fellow of Royal Society that followed 10 years back, and this promotion or this additional award was naturally given because other fundamental contributions to science, among other the solution of the Abraham-Minkowski dilemma, and very importantly the studies of orbital angular momentum of light. So what's that? Our candidate today took pictures of a very simple effect. If you take light in a well-designed manner and you shine it onto a piece of glass, then the theoretician is certain the piece of glass starts to rotate. A very simple experiment. Even though Steve is a theoretician by training and confession, he's done this kind of experiment. Something slightly went wrong. Usually that small piece of glass melted before it started to rotate fully. So we could see the he could see the tendency that the piece of glass would like to rotate. Not completely, but almost. For this work, Professor Barnett received 2 medals from the Institute of Physics, the Dirac Medal and the Maxwell Medal, which just confirm the enormous quality and importance of his work. Naturally, the scientific board of the faculty asked, and why do we award, or do we want to award this title to the candidate? The answer is simple. Just yesterday with Professor Barnett, we recalculated how long do we collaborate. We came to the number 37, 35, which seems unrealistically large because as you look at Professor Barnett, maybe not me, but at him, he's very young. So 37 is a very crude estimate. Unfortunately, we looked into our birth certificates and said 35, 37 is possible. But still we are wondering why they send these babies to the conferences when we are so young. But during these 37 years of collaboration, we enjoyed working together, enjoyed including students and younger colleagues into our work. The result being a number of papers, some of them stimulated work of others, which brought the ideas even to the form of communication protocols. With Steve, we asked a very simple question, which is not that trivial in the quantum world, when we ask, can be 2 states the same? We asked the question, done calculations, and with the help of our dear friend now from Edinburgh, suggested quantum state comparison, which is now at the heart of one protocol which is called quantum digital signature. This work naturally was not standing alone. It was part of a rather general trend, say 10 years ago, when people interested in quantum information have been looking for new ways how to, new and secure ways how to communicate. They came up with quantum identification, quantum comparison, and in the audience today also we have other colleagues, dear colleagues, which contributed to this field. Unfortunately, they are not not that far away. Usually they are in the US, but they through Budapest, they come and visit us. So today we have other 2 such guests, which will be awarded by the medals of the university. János and Tamás are the examples. And essentially with both our candidates, we are bound with decades of friendship. Thank you for that. So we, naturally, when we had collaboration and worked with students, we had exchanges also of students, and here I have to say that we would settle our score with the Scottish, because Scotland is in a 3-1 lead. We had 3 postdocs from Steve's group, while only 1 postdoc went to Scotland. So I think Scotland is happy that it leads 3-1. And this exchange being naturally supported by application to grants which been successful, and we could travel back and forth between the United Kingdom and the Czech Technical University, and that was another service of Professor Barnett to the Technical University. Professor Barnett is also a visiting professor at our university, held lectures at the Department of Physics, and students could directly profit from his enormous knowledge. I think to my colleagues in the scientific board, I hope also to Her Magnificence, I could prove that Professor Barnett is a worthy candidate for the honor of Doctor Honoris Causa. And gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for your attention.
Děkuji panu děkanovi profesoru Jeksovi za představení doktoranda. Prosím vaši magnificenci o svolení k vykonání promoce.
I have listened with interest to your report and to your proposal that honorary title of Doctor Honoris Causa be awarded to Professor Barnett at today's ceremonial assembly of the Scientific Council of the Czech Technical University. Since the Scientific Council of the Czech Technical University in Prague, at its meeting on June 16, 2020, expressed its agreement with this proposal, and since all legal and formal conditions have been satisfied, I give my agreement that this graduation ceremony be held.
I thank Your Magnificence for giving your consent. I ask his promoter, Professor Jeks, to conduct the graduation ceremony.
Dear Professor Barnett, the Scientific Council of the Czech Technical University in Prague has decided to award you the honorary title of Doctor Honoris Causa of the Czech Technical University in Prague. Dear Professor Barnett, I request you solemnly to take the following oath. I ask all the present to rise. I promise on my honor and conscience that, as the Doctor Honoris Causa of the Czech Technical University in Prague, I shall in my activities promote the development of scientific and technical knowledge for the benefit of mankind. I shall follow ethical principles and shall contribute to the pursuit of the human ideals of a democratic society. Being conscious of the glorious tradition of this oldest Czech technical university, I shall always promote the reputation of the Czech Technical University in Prague, and as opportunities arise, I shall support its educational, scientific, and other creative and artistic activities. Professor Barnett, do you promise?
I promise.
Thank you. Nothing now stands in the way of me awarding you the honor that our university has bestowed on you. As the duly designated promoter, I therefore pronounce you, dear Professor Barnett, Doctor Honoris Causa of the Czech Technical University in Prague. In confirmation of this, I hand you a diploma, and for today's ceremony, I loan to you a chain as the symbol of the permanent bond that will forever link you with our technical university. Okay.
On behalf of the Scientific Council of the Czech Technical University in Prague and in my own name, I congratulate Professor Barnett, holder of the honorary title of Doctor Honoris Causa of the Czech Technical University in Prague, and I ask him on this occasion to deliver his address. Professor Barnett, I now request you to make your address.
Dear Rector, assembled dignitaries, senior members of the university, fellow honorees, ladies and gentlemen, friends. A grand occasion such as this encourages one to look back. In my case, on a research career that began almost 40 years ago. It's hard to believe. At that time, Wolfgang, now Professor Schleich, Igor, now Professor Yex, and I were just young men setting out on careers in science. We were earnest, we were hardworking, passionate about our science, we had big dreams and had plenty of healthy naivety. I'm not sure, I really don't know how we, and certainly I, got from those beginnings to our current status. What I can say for certain, however, is that I've been immensely fortunate to have been afforded the luxury of a career in scientific research, where there is great virtue in playing with ideas, in lifelong learning, in scholarship, and in passing on these ideals to eager young minds. I'm pleased to admit also that there's been excitement, a lot of fun, along with many mistakes, some even embarrassing. But of course, that's the nature of research. Have we made a difference, I wonder? I can only hope so. Taking stock, I think what I appreciate most has been the enduring collaborations and friendships that have evolved during my career. Like-minded individuals are found worldwide, and it's one of the delights and genuine benefits of academic life that one's circle of colleagues and friends transcends geographical borders. Science is an international endeavor, and it's better for being an international endeavor, and may it ever remain so. Dear Igor, can it really be 35 years ago that we first met and sat discussing physics, and in doing so discovered a shared love of Sherlock Holmes stories? Actually, it might be 36 years, and it might also be 37. Memory is very unreliable. Our chance meetings in those early days have grown into a long-standing friendship and enduring collaboration. I'm grateful to you, and I put on record, for all that you've taught me, but more so for what we've discovered together. It's been a lot of fun. More important than our relationship, I think, is the impact that it's had on our younger colleagues and the joint community that they've grown into. As you said, over the years, many of them have moved between Prague and Glasgow, and it's become an accepted practice that some of our most promising students, yours and mine, have, on graduation, made their way to the partner institution, either for positions or as visitors. Young scientists from Glasgow travel to Prague, and those from Prague travel to Glasgow, thereby enriching at the research teams at both our institutions and binding us ever closer together. One can look further afield, moreover, and identify colleagues currently at other institutions in Scotland, and indeed in the wider UK, and here in Czechia, and also in neighbouring countries, whose interactions and collaborations we have encouraged, or shall we say, catalysed. Indeed, I see with pride and pleasure former members of and visitors to my research group now working with you, and also that one of my former students currently working at Palacký University is also attending today. It's a genuine pleasure and a profound honour to accept, humbly, the honorary degree you confer today. For me, it is a most welcome recognition from a university for which I have the greatest respect and also genuine affection. It is also, I hope, a reflection of the strong and enduring links that now exist between us, between our institutions, and also between our national scientific communities. I am most grateful. Thank you.
Dear Professor Barnett, thank you for your speech. Nyní přistoupíme k udělení čestného titulu Doktor honoris causa Českého vysokého učení technického v Praze profesoru Schleichovi. Nejprve si dovoluji požádat děkana fakulty jaderné a fyzikálně inženýrské profesora Jekse, aby představil doktoranda profesora Schleicha.
Magnificence, magnifici, spectabiles, honorabiles, dear friends. Another series of interferences will follow. I will start, because I was thinking how to characterize the work of Professor Schleich, and I came across a quote from a famous French physicist, a mathematician, which says, "Infinitely varied in its effects, nature is simple only in its causes, and its economy consists in producing a great number of phenomena, often very complicated, by means of a small number of laws." So this is the task which Wolfgang and Steve, myself, been doing the whole life. Try behind the plethora of effects which are around us, those few principles which rule them and which very efficiently can fool us. In Professor Schleich, I'm certain a great teacher, a great high school teacher, is lost, and only during his studies at the university, Professor Süssmann, convinced and converted him to a career in science. I'm certain that, like he is a loved university teacher, he would be even most probably more loved high school teacher, with his affection also again to music, another or repeated recurrence or interference, if you want. And after deciding to do science, Wolfgang was privileged, very effectively used the fact that he was very quickly accepted by some of the leading minds in Germany, and those allowed him to continue in the United States, where he found his personal luck and love. And the person was Professor Walter, who might not be that known outside of the physics community, but I think all the people who know their stuff would say Professor Walter was Nobel Prize material. And would he live long enough, he would be with right awarded that title. So Wolfgang is one of the intellectual descendants from this school. He profited very much. He went to US, worked with another. Some people in the literature call him the last Titan. That was John Archibald Wheeler, which again, laymen might not know. Physicists certainly remember his 1939 paper on the structure of atoms with Niels Bohr, which essentially gave the birth to the nuclear bomb. That was really the one. So that was John Archibald Wheeler. Otherwise, most probably no one is that well aware that science fiction would not be possible with John Archibald Wheeler, because he coined the term black hole, and it took off. So that's another line. And the third line, which Wolfgang appreciates, and again, we have our Hungarian friends, Ismail and Scully, who taught them a lot of physics. So this is in a nutshell, so to say, all the important people in life. Kathy, you notice I mentioned the treasure, so you are included in those important people. Was request of Wolfgang. And what to list as the biggest scientific accomplishments, because we have to justify in front of scientific board. Wolfgang worked along fundamental problems of physics, so that's quantum theory in general, general relativity, and very importantly, the interface between those two, optical test of general relativity. Even though, while I could name Steve as a hobby experimental physicist, I'm not certain I would dare that to say about Wolfgang. On the other hand, he shoots rockets in the air. That's his latest endeavor, namely testing microgravity using atom interferometry. Just half a year ago, he was interviewed with the German newspaper Die Zeit, where he explained what are the roles of his new institute. That's an institute founded by Deutsche Luft- und Raumfahrt. And the aim is to get the quantum technology in Germany to work. So that's his last mission. Otherwise, he is a professor at the University of Ulm. He worked really a lot also on problems of interference in phase space. Somewhere there we met. These are the first contacts we had. I think that was 1993 in the DPG meeting in Berlin, where Wolfgang was talking about multi-eye cats generated using coherent states. So we met there, and since then on our visits started, either visits to Ulm or from Ulm, not only myself but also of students, a number of students of mine, being then students of Wolfgang, and I'm proud to say, and I hope it's really, I'm convinced it's the truth, they've been among the most appreciated ones, which Wolfgang lists among his students. I should not, and I must not, forget to mention another role that Wolfgang had in the service of the Czech Technical University through, naturally, Faculty of Nuclear Sciences, and that was that he helped and facilitated opening to us additional contacts. I have to mention here our dear friend Professor Alba from the Technical University in Darmstadt, to which we are bound by decades of very fruitful scientific collaboration, and that collaboration started while Docent Alba was in Ulm, and we shared an office and started to be interested in a number of problems. I think the first one we studied was the vibrations of fullerene. And then we continued with quantum chaos. We could interest again our Hungarian friends to it. And the latest development, which I still consider was rooted in Ulm, and Wolfgang always helped, is our collaboration with the influential Center of Optics in Erlangen, which then a group moved to Paderborn, and there we have, I think, a worldwide noticeable collaboration on experiments on quantum walks. Those are really experiments. Our students and young colleagues participate in very intensely on that collaboration. We are really considered by our colleagues in Germany as theoreticians. So they enjoy sharing the experiments with us with sentences of the following form. Yeah, it's very nice that you are interested in this experiment. Yeah, you can call that experiment our experiment, but please do so in the next room. So that we are not allowed to touch, essentially, anything. So I already mentioned, and to justify why we are the right Czech university to award the Doctor Honoris Causa to Professor Schleich, is simply because he served a lot intellectually and also organization-wise for decades. Professor Schleich reviews the scientific activities of the Doppler Institute, is member of the advisory board, and is always ready to help with ideas and deeds to strengthen the position of the Doppler Institute. And for the last 3 years, now the whole university profits from the broad knowledge of Professor Schleich, because he's on the advisory board of the Center for Advanced Applied Sciences, where 6 of the faculties of the Technical University participate in one or the other form. And always when we meet with Wolfgang, he shows keen interest and asks about how the scientific program progresses and whether he can help in any way. This is a story which I remember when you say Wolfgang, so I always remember the exchange ideas, the lot of fun we had, the mistakes we've done, and so on. But there is also an advice which I follow, or one of the advices, and this is Wolfgang never had reason and never made any kind of comments on his mentors which would allow something negative. On the other hand, there was a memory that I have that when Wolfgang was with Professor Walter, there was one moment where he became always worried. And that was when Professor Walter came to his office, looked at Wolfgang and said, "Wolfgang, we organize a conference." I don't know whether I tried that with our students. I don't think I got the same response. But what I learned from that is that Wolfgang has two types of visitors. One are called low, the other high maintenance visitors. Most probably this comes from his time with Professor Walter, who he was the vice president of the Max Planck Society. So he had a lot of contacts, and many of them most probably have been high maintenance. So the life of Wolfgang is full of science, impressive results which are proven by his numerous memberships in learned societies. I could have spent the 10 minutes just by reading in which many. What is important is his contribution to science, his willingness and his services for the Czech Technical University, and I hope I convinced once again the scientific board of the university and also His Magnificence that Professor Schleich is the right choice for awarding the Doctor Honoris Causa. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.
Děkuji panu děkanovi profesoru Jeksovi za představení doktoranda. Prosím vaši magnificenci o svolení k vykonání promoce.
I have listened again with great interest to your report and to your proposal that the honorary title of Doctor Honoris Causa be awarded to Professor Schleich at today's ceremonial assembly of the Scientific Council of the Czech Technical University. Since the Scientific Council of the Czech Technical University in Prague at its meeting on June 16, 2020, expressed its agreement with this proposal, and since all legal and formal conditions have been satisfied, I give my agreement that this graduation ceremony be held.
I thank you, Your Magnificence, for giving your consent. I ask his promoter, Professor Jeks, to conduct the graduation ceremony.
Sehr geehrter Herr Professor Schleich, der Wissenschaftliche Rat der Tschechischen Technischen Universität in Prag hat beschlossen, Ihnen den Ehrentitel Doctor Honoris Causa der Tschechischen Technischen Universität in Prag zu verleihen. Sehr geehrter Herr Professor Schleich, ich bitte Sie feierlich, folgenden Eid in Englisch abzulegen. I ask all the present to rise. I promise on my word of honor and conscience that as a Doctor Honoris Causa of the Czech Technical University in Prague, I shall in my activities promote the development of scientific and technical knowledge for the benefit of mankind. I shall follow ethical principles and shall contribute to the pursuit of the human ideals of a democratic society. Being conscious of the glorious tradition of this oldest Czech technical university, I shall always promote the reputation of the Czech Technical University in Prague, and as opportunities arise, I shall support its educational, scientific and other creative and artistic activities. Herr Professor Schleich, versprechen Sie?
Ja, ich verspreche.
Thank you. Nothing now stands in the way of me awarding to you the honors that our university has bestowed on you. As the duly designated promoter, I therefore pronounce you, dear Professor Schleich, Doctor Honoris Causa of the Czech Technical University in Prague. In confirmation of this, I hand you a diploma, and for today's ceremony, I loan to you a chain as a symbol of the permanent bond that will forever link you with our technical university.
Magnifizenz, Spektabilitäten, liebe Kollegen, Freunde, I've chosen the beginning of the speech in German as to express also my admiration for this country and the science that unites us, and I do not speak Czech well enough to say it in your language here. So I figured I would not make a mistake by saying it in German. I'm very honored and humbled by the speech that Igor has given. There were moments when I felt he's not even talking about me. He's talking about somebody else. But he mentioned frequently one of my big heroes, Professor Herbert Walter, but also John Archibald Wheeler, who once said, "Nobody is anybody without somebody around." And so it is the friendship, it is the community that really forms us and makes us successful. And Steve has already mentioned that we met all about 30 years ago, and he said when we were young, and I have to disagree with you, Steve, on this point. I still feel young. Okay, nothing has changed there, and I'm sure that Igor feels the same way. Nobody is anybody without somebody around. Even Einstein had Marcel Grossmann, who helped him with the mathematics. Asking the right questions in science is 99% of the solution. For example, Erwin Schrödinger gave a colloquium in Zurich in 1925 talking about the theory of matter waves by de Broglie. And then Peter Debye got up and he said, if that's true what you're saying, there must be a wave equation. So why don't you go out and find a wave equation? And that's what eventually gave rise to the Schrödinger equation that we are all fond of and make our living off. So it is asking the right questions and having people around that are first class so that you can make some headway. I see Professor Bergo sitting here in front of me, and it is almost 40 years ago that we were sharing an office at the Max Planck Institute. I was a young student at the time, and he taught me how to solve certain nonlinear differential equations. And I still make a living out of these equations, Janusz, so thank you very much for that. I see Stephen sitting next to me, and I was at a conference in Porvoo in Finland, organized by our friend Stig Stenholm. And for the first time I heard that there's a problem in quantum mechanics with a phase operator. And again, this triggered something in me to look into this problem, something that I had never bothered before. And I'm always grateful to him. A couple of years later, we edited a special issue together on exactly questions of this type. Then Igor appears, and he had a Humboldt fellowship, and he came to join me in Ulm, and I learned about quantum walks. I learned about boson sampling from him. And he was very modest when he said this, that, yeah, it caused some interest. It was him, and I can say that, I don't have to be modest, it's not my work, but it was his work that triggered a very famous experiment by Professor Pan in China, where boson sampling was done based on the theoretical suggestions of Igor. So in one sentence, it was Igor who put quantum optics in Prague on the map. So it was amazing to us outsiders what he has done over the years, and he mentioned the exchange between Ulm and indeed Prague. I'm thinking of Martin Stefanak, who came to visit me, and Martin showed interest in a factorization method called Gauss sum factorization, and together with the numeric, not the analysis, with the number theoretical department in Ulm, we worked out number theoretical aspects of Gauss sum factorization. Iva Beshtekova, another student of Igor's, came to work with us also on the Riemann theta function. And we have pushed, thanks to Iva, an approach where we think if we would just stay up to midnight, we would crack the old problem of the Riemann hypothesis. Needless to say, we never stay up till midnight, but we always have the hope we would be able to solve this problem. Now, I have even stronger ties, Igor, to Ostrava now, because one of our cats is from Ostrava, Olivia. Eva was kind enough to bring up my birthday. I think it was the 30th birthday. She brought me a kitty cat from Ostrava, a wonderful cat, and so we are reminded of Eva every day. Pavel Exner has created the Doppler Institute. I've always been impressed by the mathematical expertise here. I look and see Professor Toller, who came many years ago to visit me in Ulm and showed me how a density matrix could mean different realizations. I had not appreciated that before. So it is always that I say you learn a lot by talking to people, by bringing people together, and by motivating them. I agree, Steve, that we have gained experience over the years. We have become professors. We're not the revolutionaries of the old days. We have now professors, and that reminds me of a joke I have heard, and it's a typical German professor joke, where a man goes into a store to buy a parrot. And he says, "Can the parrot speak?" And the shop owner says, "Oh, of course he can speak. I mean, what do you mean?" And he says, "How much is this parrot?" He says, 10,000 euro. He says, 10,000 euro for a parrot? I mean, what can the guy do? What can he say? Well, he says, "Oh, he knows non-relativistic quantum mechanics." And he says, "That's impressive, I understand. What about the other parrot here? Beautiful parrot." And he says, "That costs 20,000 euro. And he says, "How come 20,000 euro? He says, "He knows relativistic quantum field theory." He says, "Wow." And he said, "What about the third parrot here?" The third parrot has lost all his feathers. He's old, and he sits there. And he says, "What about this guy?" He says, "He costs 100,000 euro. What can he do?" And the shop owner says, "We haven't figured it out yet. He doesn't speak, but the other two call him professor." So with this, I would like to thank you again. I would like to thank the faculty I want to thank Igor for the friendship, for the collaborations. And again, Igor, I hate to say this, but I don't remember mistakes we made. We made detours, but no mistakes. I make mistakes, but not Igor. And of course, I want to thank the lady sitting there in the second row. Without her, it wouldn't have been possible for me to be here. She always gives me time to think about it, to write papers, and to invite people, sometimes on short notice, calling up an hour ahead and saying, I'm bringing somebody home for dinner. Do we have something at home? So again, thank you, Kathy. Again, thank you, Magnificence. Thank you to the faculties, the spectacular, and thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Dear Professor Schleich, thank you for your speech. I congratulate Professor Schleich, holder of the honorary title of Doctor Honoris Causa of the Czech Technical University in Prague, both from the part of the Scientific Council and mine. Nyní prosím pány hudebníky Františka Bílka a Michala Hanzala o přednes skladby pro solovou trubku a varhany. Nyní budou předány medaile Českého vysokého učení technického prvého i druhého stupně. Medaile Českého vysokého učení technického jsou udělovány osobnostem, které prokázaly významné zásluhy o rozvoj univerzity doma nebo v zahraničí. We continue with medal ceremony. The medals of Czech Technical University in the golden version are awarded to 5 distinguished professors: János Bergu, Herbert Mank, Košrou Motagi, Ulrich Schmidt, and Michael Forlander. I invite the rector to present medals and the nominated to appear before the Scientific Council and accept the medal of diploma from the hands of the rector. Professor Bergu. Professor Bank. Professor Motagi. Professor Schmidt. assigned Professor for Lander. Medaile Českého vysokého učení technického stříbrná byla udělena doktoru Tamáš Kis z Wigner Research Center for Physics Budapest. I invite the rector to present medal and I invite Dr. Kis to appear before the Scientific Council and accept the medal and diploma from the hands of the rector. Pane rektore, děkuji za předání medailí. Vážené dámy a pánové, vážení hosté, tímto významným aktem, kterým bylo udělení čestného titulu doktoru honoris causa a udělení medaile ČVUT, se dnešní program slavnostního zasedání Vědecké rady naplnil. Dovolte mi, abych poděkoval vám, našim milým a vzácným hostům, za to, že jste nás poctili svou účastí. Tímto dnešní veřejné slavnostní zasedání Vědecké rady Českého vysokého učení technického považuji za ukončené.